Okay, Bruchim Habayim. I understand this is the first of a series, the first of a mivtza, an effort to Mekayim the Rebbe's Hira. The Hira was in connection with Yud Beis Gimel Tammuz to learn the Maimer that we're going to learn tonight, and then to fulfill the Maimer, the Hira of the Maimer that we're going to learn tonight. The Maimer is a Maimer that was given out in Tafresh Peches by the Rebbe Rayatz. This was on Yud Beis Tammuz Peches, the 1 year, the first celebration of the Chag HaGeula. And the Rebbe chose that opportunity to not, it's not a celebration, it's not a focus on Shevach V'Yedah, it's practice to do something to be meisif in Limud Torah, and specifically to be meisif in Limud Torah Berabim. And the Rebbe is going to define that as learning at least with 10 people, learning publicly. And so Rabbi Ratban and Igud HaTorah is establishing a series of shurim throughout the summer, so that people could learn, Mekayim this inyan of learning publicly, whether they could do it in person, Asara Yeshvim literally sitting together in the same room, or Yeshvim on their couch at home, using technology to join together to learn publicly. We are zeicha that this Maimer, Asara Yeshvim, was explained by the Rebbe in among other places. It's printed in Maimon Melukah Chiluk Daled. There was a 2 Maimer Hemshech, both beginning of Asar Sheyeshvim, that were delivered Membeis and were printed Muga and printed in Tavshin Nun. Ein Azman Grama, we need to learn all 3 Maimorim Be'iyun tonight. I'm going to try to weave in some of the Rebbe's notes and points as we learn the Maimer. But it's kedai to learn the Maimer inside if you have the opportunity, because you learn not only a deeper understanding in the Rebbe Rayatz's Maimer, but you learn how a chassid is supposed to learn a Maimer. You see how the Rebbe is medayik in not just in the points that the Rebbe Rayatz makes, but in the order, the sequence in the Maimer in which he makes them. And the Rebbe shows that we see this most clearly with Basi Lagani, because we were zeichet every year here a beer, in-depth beer of Inais. But you see it over here also, and it's very kedai to look for those Maimarim and learn them. We didn't budget a lot of time for the Maimer, so without further introduction, we'll jump straight into the Maimer. If you're following along at home, it's printed in a number of places, but it's printed in Sefer HaMaimarim Tafresh Peches. That's the Sefer I'm using here, page number Kuf Mem Ches. And the Maimer is labeled Limud Berabim Yud Beis Tammuz Peches. The Rebbe actually notes that it's also printed as a kuntres. I guess people don't have kuntres. The way you'll have it in your library if you have Tafresh Peches. Okay. So the Maimer is based on a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos we're all familiar with, because we all learned it during the summer. And the Rebbe Rayatz copy and paste with the Rashi and the Mefarshim as necessary the whole Mishnah. So we'll start off by learning the Mishnah. Asara Sheyeshvim V'Yiskin B'Torah Shechina Shruya B'Neiim, says the Mishnah, that when 10 people sit and are involved in Torah, the Shechina dwells between them. Shenemar Elikim Nitzav Ba'ad Askel, the pasuk says Hashem is standing in a congregation of the Eibishter. Ve'ein Eidah Pchusim Asara. Rashi, with the word Eidah, we know this from the Meraglim, we know this from the halachas of a minyan. Eidah means 10. So the pasuk says Hashem is standing. When there's 10, Adas Kel means people that are learning Torah, and it's an Eidah, it's 10. The Mishnah goes on to say that his group is established on the earth. Agudah hi shel chachamish, and in parentheses the Rebbe notes that Agudah means 5, quoting Rashi, Rambam, and Rabbeinu Yonah. The Mishnah goes on, how do we know that even 3 people that are learning that Hashem is in their midst? Shenemar bekerev elikim yishpait, that we judge in the presence of the Eibishter. Now yishpait, judging, is dayanim, is gimel, is 3. So 3 dayanim that are sitting and they're judging, they're discussing or learning the Torah, so the Eibishter is present. So we see that three that sit and learn, also there's the presence of the Eibishter. How do you know that even if two people are sitting and learning b'chavrusa, shenemar, it says, Az nidru yirei Hashem, ishal re'ehu, that when those who fear Hashem are speaking one to each other, one to the other, one to his friend, speaking and learning, v'yakshiv Hashem, v'yishma, Hashem is listening and hearing. So we see Hashem is present even when people are learning only with two. And the Mishnah ends off, Minayin afilu echad. How do you know that even one person sits and learns by himself? Hashem is present. Any place where my name is mentioned, when I give you the wisdom, the seichel to mention my name in learning. Although a side note, azkir shmi is usually something associated with the Beis Hamikdash, which is of tefillah, as we're going to see. So we see the pasuk is said in the singular form. Elecha, I will come to you in the singular, even a yachid. And I will bench you. V'hainu is already the episode. Adkan lashon ha-mishnah. And so here we see that if we're learning Torah, if there's 10, we have a special presence of the Eibishter. But the Mishnah goes on to tell us that it's not only 10, it's also 5, it's also 3, it's also 2, and it's also 1. V'hainu. So the Rebbe Rayatz now starts to explain the Mishnah, and he says, that even if a single person is sitting and engaging in Torah, he's bringing into this world a Gilei Likus. Right? Bracha is Moshe Namshacha. So this doesn't leave us necessarily with the subject of the Maimer and the subject of the Hisayrus tonight, which is Limud Berabim. And right, it seems to suggest that we have a spectrum of sizes, and any size of group, the Eibishter is there. We call Makim, says the Rebbe Rayatz, there's a difference between Echad Shaisik B'Torah and Torah Berabim. There is a difference between a person who learns Torah on his own and someone who's learning Torah publicly, which is defined as a minyan. V'hainu, as we'll see that we're going to bring the raya from Tefillah. V'hainu she'Rabbim mamshichim madregel yiriyser, which is to say that Rabbim, a public group of a large group that learns Torah, draws into this world a likus from a higher source. And the Rebbe Rayatz compares it to Tefillah. Shomer Azal Chazal say Tefillah's Rabbim einonim esses. The tefillah of a minyan, of a large group, einonim esses, is not rejected, is not discarded by the Eibishter. Shenemar, like it says, Ein Keil Kabir Lo Yimas, or V'lo Yimas, that the Eibishter is mighty and he doesn't reject, he doesn't turn away from the tefillah, which Chazal tells us is referring to the tefillah as tefillah b'tzibur. Sharabim b'tefillosam hamshichim b'chinas yudgimul midas harachma. What is the divine response to Tfilas Rabim? With Tfilas Rabim, Tfilas Minyan, we're able to draw into this world from the 13 Midas Harachamim, which are beyond Seder Shtalshus, beyond the regular Seder things, which is Bedin Umishpat. We're able to tap into higher than that through the 13 Midas Harachamim. So the same thing is true of Torah Berabim. That when people learn Torah Berabim, Nimshach Gili Oyer El Yan Yeser, we are drawing down a presence of the Eibishter and an of the Eibishter that is even greater. Now the Rebbe says one of the reasons for this is that the number 10 is when the Yidden are enumerated. There are 10 classes, 10 groups, 10 madrigas enumerated there, and when you have a minyan, you have a representative, each person representing to some degree, differentiated in one of these 10 ways, and representing the entire spectrum. All Yidden are together. So it's more than just the practical benefit that we have when we sit together and we learn. Especially if we're learning in the interactive way, where everybody's contributing by asking, by answering, suggesting. So we have a practical benefit of just the contribution that everybody's making is enhancing the understanding of everybody present. Comes the Rebbe and says that it's not just the practical benefit, there's actually a spiritual benefit, there's a spiritual gilui that comes, that helps us understand and internalize and absorb it better, and also brings into the world a greater gilui. Hine, what's the link between Torah and the Gilui Midas Arachim? Rabbi Shmuel says, "B'shalish esrei midas haTorah nidreshes, b'kal v'chemer b'gzeira shavach." Right, we're all familiar with this from right before Haidu. We say it every morning that there are 13 ways in which the Torah, psukim of the Torah, can be unpacked, in which you can extract deeper meaning and deeper halachas details from the psukim, from kal v'chemer, gzeira shavach, and so on. There are 13 channels, there are 13 methods through which the light of Torah is revealed. That each of these different methods of learning Torah, each of these 13 midas, bring about a new insight and a new perspective, a new way of learning, and a new conclusion that can be extracted. I'm sorry. And taking, for example, the first of the 13, which is Kal V'Chemer. Kal V'Chemer means that if you have a halacha that is true in a lesser case, that same halacha certainly will apply to a more serious case if something is, let's say, from Yom Tov to Shabbos, from Shabbos to Yom Kippur, things that are also within the restrictions of Kal V'Chemer. I didn't think of an example to suggest, but the idea is that if something is true in a lighter case than in a more serious case, for sure it's true. So when we come with the Kal V'Chemer, we're able to learn something new in the Torah that if without the Kal V'Chemer we would not have known. In Cain. So this midah becomes a source of Torah, which allows us to reveal new inyanim in Torah. Each of these 13 midas reveal to us new light in the Torah in a more revealed way and in a more detailed way. And here's where we get to the link between the Torah and the Tefillah. These 13 channels through which the Torah can be revealed correspond to the 13 midas aracham and the 13 attributes of divine mercy. And we find that Maggid points out something very interesting. That we recently had this in the parsha that Miriam, the sister of Moshe Rabbeinu, was stricken with tzaras, and Moshe davened to the Eibishter using one of the attributes of Hashem's mercy. The Moshe b'tfilah say, "Omar kel no refa no law." He said to Moshe, "Hashem, please heal her, please." And he uses the Shem Kale, which is the first of the 13 midas. So what is Hashem's response? Hashem says in response to Kal V'Chemer. Here there's a Kal V'Chemer where he said that if someone's father is displeased with them and insults them, so to speak, or rebukes them, so they would feel ashamed for a full week. They wouldn't be embarrassed to show them with their face. They would feel the echo of that rebuke for 7 days. So Kol Shkem Kal V'Chemer, that when Kal V'Chemer l'Shechina, that if the Shechina rebukes somebody, certainly they should hear the echo. They should feel ashamed and chastened, at least as much, really more, but at least as much as that. So from this interaction we see that through Moshe Rabbeinu tapping into the 13 midas, he earned, so to speak, he got in response one of the 13 midas of the Torah. Just as this holds true of the first midah of the midas Rachmim and the first midah of the learning of Torah, so the Rebbe Rayatz now expands it and says this is true in general terms. Through the general concept of the 13 midas with which the Torah, so the same thing is true in a general sense, and also it is true in reverse, that if through Kale we can tap into Kal V'Chemer, so through studying Kal V'Chemer we're also tapping into the 30 midas Sha'at Torah Nidreshes. And this link between Torah and Tefillah is is apparent in the pasuk of in Shir Hashirim, where it says Zeu Shomer Zal pasuk Harei B'Shoshanim, right? Ani l'deiti v'deiti li Harei B'Shoshanim Al Tigre Shoshanim El Shoshanim B'Halachis. So Chazal, from this pasuk in Shir Hashirim, where we talk about a rose, we use the symbol of a rose, and the word Shoshanim in Hebrew has a resemblance, and with a little you squint a little, you see Shoshanim is Shoshanim. Chazal say those who study Torah, right? So we see that in the word Shoshanim is Torah. And the Zohar, and these two limudim or should be familiar to us from the Maimorim of Ani. But we know from the Zohar, Man Shoshana Do Knesset Yisrael, that this rose is a reference to Knesset Yisrael. And Ma Shoshana is but Leisar Olin, just as a rose has 13 petals. Uf Knesset Yisrael is but Leisar Michil Deracham et Desachin La Mechol Sitraha. So just like a rose, a flower is surrounded by petals, 13 petals, so Yidden also are compared to the rose because they are surrounded by the 13 petals, the 13 pathways and channels of Rachamim, of divine mercy. So the Zohar is not coming to replace or give an alternative to the understanding of the Chazal, that Shoshanim is referring to Torah. It's saying that through learning Torah we also have another opinion, that when we learn Torah, we draw down the Yud Gimel Midas HaRachamim. So I want to pause here for a second and point out something that the Rebbe points out in Tafshim and Beis, that because normally the advantage of learning Berabim, like B'chal, with Torah, when we're talking about Tefillah is about asking Hashem for something that you don't have. So any benefit that would accrue, any benefit that you'll have, will enhance your ability to draw down something that you don't have, right? So it's understandable that the benefit, the supercharging of tefillah that happens through a minyan results in drawing down a higher from a higher place, right? Because that's the whole point of tefillah. Mashenk in Torah we don't usually understand as being about innovating or drawing down new things. Really, Torah, the study of Torah is about absorbing, about internalizing, understanding something that already exists. Right? You even say, even the innovations that were never recognized and identified in all the centuries since millennia, since Matan Torah, even that was embedded already in Torah. It's already pre-existing, and we're just drawing it out, we're just internalizing, we're just understanding it. So you might think that the supercharging that happens through learning Berabim is of a benefit in terms of the Kabbalah, in terms of the Makabal, in terms of the internalizing. So if you internalize to such a degree when you're learning by yourself, or when you learn with a minyan, now you'll internalize it even to a much greater degree. And it's the Rebbe points out that it's clear from the way that the Rebbe Rayatz is comparing it to Tefillah that it's more than that. That it's not that we're drawing down Giluyim from a place that's even beyond the Torah that we could have tapped into, that was there before, that we're able to draw down Giluyim from a place that even that's beyond that. It's enhancing the essence of the Torah that we're learning. So in short, in the first ois, we established that learning Berabim has a tremendous power, and overlearning even with other ways in which the Eibusher's presence is still there, but it's not like Tefillah, which we always make a point. We all run to daven with a minyan, or we should run to daven with a minyan. So why? Because we recognize that to davening with a minyan, we're able to achieve with our davening more than we would be yachid, and that's really the way the Eibusher wants us to daven. So really, we should have the same attitude towards learning. That of course we could learn ourselves, but if there's a shir and we're able to learn Berabim or B'chavrusa at least, but the point here is Berabim, at least with a minyan, we should really run to do that as well. So the Rebbe now in his base is going to expand on this a little bit. The ones who learn Torah, generally speaking, and all those who specifically, especially those who teach Torah, are called the Niturei Karta, the ones who guard the city. That this, like we said before, that the bringing of Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim into Torah through Torah is primarily through learning b'minyan. So the Rebbe is now expanding this idea. We understand that by looking at davening. In tefillah, in yono, b'chinas halah milmata l'maylo. When it comes to davening, we're really working with ourselves and trying to climb. Like we know like Chassidus uses tells us that the dream that Yaakov Avinu had, where you had the sulam mutzav arts, of the ladder that was rooted in the lowest aspect of earth and climbed to the highest aspect. It refers to and symbolizes tefillah, because tefillah is an upwards climb, refining ourselves and purifying ourselves and connecting to the Eibishter. Right, and there's going to be a response to our, right, we climb up and then we climb back down. But through our efforts on our own steam, we get a response from the Eibishter. So even when we're davening b'yichidus, we are reaching out, and the Eibishter responds. So what happens? What is the nature of the advantage or the superiority of tefillah b'tzibur? The tefillah Berabim u'mashar Rabim ayidei tefillos mamshichim ayidei halos man shalom is leila shaloi lefi erech ha'alah shalom. When we daven with a minyan, we're also reaching out and we also get a response. But unlike when we daven b'yachid, where we know it's everything midah connected midah lefi erech, our efforts and our achievements with our own efforts. So to a greater extent, but in some relative way, we get a shpar from the Eibishter. So when we daven with a minyan, the response is not relative to our efforts and is incomparably greater and deeper. That is the advantage of Tfilas Berabim. That the response from the Eibishter is not limited to or limited by our efforts from here. And this is what the pasuk is hinting to. The Rebbe is being medayik here in the pasuk that Chazal used to teach us the Maila of Tefillah B'tzibur. That says Hashem is mighty, and He doesn't reject, He doesn't dispel the Tefillah B'tzibur. Ima ya is the le'elo lefi erecha lo ein shaykh lo yimra al zeh lo yimos. The sharizau shemagia idei al asman, that if the response is only comparative and appropriate, so the word lo yimos would not be appropriate. That you're getting what you deserve, you're getting what you earned. Because of the superiority, the greatness of the public, of the Yidden as a klal, so it's lo yimos, that there's a response that is unearned, that's beyond, and that goes above and beyond the effort and the investment from our part. And the Rebbe compares this to an individual's tefillah. We know that in Aser Semei Tshuva, Chazal say, that the tefillah of an individual during the 10 days of Aser Semei Tshuva have the same power, have the same result, have the same effect as the tefillah of a minyan throughout the year. That, right? Because as the whole year, everyone you daven, you get the relative and comparative response. But when you daven by Zeh Semei Tshuva, even though you're only a yachid, you get a hashpah that is above and beyond the offering and the elevating that you did on your own. And that's why that is limited to Yisratzen to Aser Semei Tshuva, because on a regular day, why should you get something your effort? You get what you put in, or you get relative to what you put in. So if you have a minyan, so you get, because of the minyan's maila gives you the enhanced response. But A yachid should get that is only because of the mile of the day if he's not with a minyan. And so the same thing is true throughout the year if you're davening with a minyan, that you're able to tap into the 13 minutes of rachamim, which is a response that is not comparative, not limited to the effort that you put in. So this is all giving us an appreciation, understanding of the greatness, the advantage of davening b'tzibur when it comes to davening. Says the Rabbi Rayatz, "K'makein yuvon b'Torah." So we're going to now take this back and apply this to Torah as well. Even though Torah, generally speaking, is not like tefillah. Tefillah is malmata l'mayla, like we said. It's our effort. So a change in our makeup, right? If it's something that the investors are going to get the return. So the greater your group of investors, or the richer your investors, the richer the response. So there can be a difference about the investors. However, Torah, you would think, is different because Torah is no ma'il lamata. So it shouldn't matter who's on the receiving end. If it's coming from the Eibishter, why should it matter who's on the receiving end? Nonetheless, says the Rebbe, that this Milmayla Lamata is still prompted by our Avodah Lamata, our toil, our Yagia and Torah, and then we get the Nesin of the Torah. Mashu b'chinas Milmayla Lamata, Hainu Shem Shacha, Einu Lefi Erech, Ha'isarus L'Lasata. And here the Rebbe points out something very interesting, that he's saying that even a Yachid that learns, the fact that the Torah is Milmayla Lamata is because we're not attaining Torah on our own power. If we were attaining Torah on our own power, if it's like a science with their experiments in the lab, so the better, the greater the scientist, the wiser, the more intelligent and creative he is, the better results he's going to have. And only l'fiarech that. But we don't have to be the biggest rocket scientists. When we learn Torah, we're tapping into divine wisdom. Really, no nivra should be able to tap into the wisdom of Torah. If it was matal, we wouldn't be able to. That's why Torah b'goy maltamen, even the wisest guy has no shaykhs to Torah, because Torah is shalei l'fiyarech just by its nature. It's shalei l'fiyarech, the intellect that we bring to bear in our learning, right? So the fact that Torah is b'mayil l'mata means that the hamshacha eini l'fiyarech ha'izarus l'sata. What we draw down under any circumstance is. It's we call it Milmayla Lamata not because we could just sit and do nothing and get broadcast Torah into our minds. We have to work. It's called Milmayla Lamata because by its fundamental, by its nature, it's not. It's beyond us, and it's a gift. It's not literally Milmayla Lamata, just a gift, unearned, unprovoked, unengaged by the recipient. We have to have avodah v'yigiyah. We have to work hard. We have to toil in Torah. And because that's the nature of it, that I call Torah, Gam Torah. And here, if not for, I don't know if I would have noticed this without the Rebbe drawing good attention to this. The Rebbe, once you know it, it's clear in the Maimer. But what the Rebbe is saying over here is that the toil that we have in Torah is cannot just be the intellectual pursuit of Torah, right? Why shouldn't he have Torah? If a person says, "I'm not doing any other aspect of this whole Yiddishkeit, I'm just going to learn Torah," or any aspect of Avodah, I'm doing the mitzvahs, fine, but I'm not going to do any aspect of Avodah. I'm just going to do Torah. That's going to be my thing. So, I feel Torah. Why? Why shouldn't he have Torah? Because you have to also have, because the Torah is a gift. Even what we work to understand, we really are only granted as a gift from the Eibishter. So in order for us to receive that gift, we have to have bittul. We have to be mevatel ourselves, which is something that we achieve through Torah, through tefillah. I'm sorry. So if Torah was only milmata l'mayla, it was just something that we climbed the ladder of study, like in math, you learn addition and then subtraction and then multiplication and then division. You're slowly climbing the rungs. So then you could say, I'm a mathematician. I'm focusing only on math, and I'm going to get there slowly but surely, brick on brick. I'm going to build this whole structure, and I'm going to have it. But Torah doesn't work that way, because Torah is milmayla lamata. It's not something that we are able to build brick on brick, because it's infinitely greater than us. It's infinitely greater than creation. We have to get it milmayla lamata, and if that's the case, it needs to be done through tefillah, through a bittul, so that we can be the right mekabel. Not only does the actual pursuit of Torah itself, the learning, require work and toil, that we have to have toil and then matzasa. That if you want to have, even in Havdil and other in any intellectual pursuit, you have to work. If you want to understand something that's not already obvious, you want to get something that's not obvious, you have to work hard on it. In Torah, we need more than that. We need, in order to be successful in Torah and to receive the Torah, we have to work on our own avodah and change our own natural tendencies. Right? That you have this idea of Oived Elikim. We all know this from Chitas from Tanya, that we're talking about Oived Elikim. Oived Elikim, you would think, is not part of the intellectual part of Torah, the academic part of Torah. Oived Elikim is the Avodah, right? You have the Oivdim and the Maskilim. So you see something very interesting over here, that it's like a blend. We're talking about learning. Who's the Oived Elikim? Or the Oivdim, the ones that are learning, right? You're blending this idea that, because really a true masculine Torah, a true person that is learning, needs to have this Sheina Pirkei Mea Pam V'achas, which the Rebbe tells us in Tanya is all about bittul, breaking yourself. You have your regilos, right? Like, gives an example of a donkey who normally travels a certain amount of parasais. And if you want to go further, and you'll really tire the donkey out because it's not used to doing, so therefore you have to pay double. Right? A person is used to a certain natural tendency, a certain habit that he's formed. So to learn any extra is not just it's not an academic achievement. That's an emotional achievement. It's an avodic achievement for a person to go beyond himself. It's not about the studying. It's not about the understanding, right? That one extra study is not giving you that intellectual breakthrough because of an intellectual thing. It's breaking your yeshus. It's making you a real makabel, so that you're able to be makabel the Torah. Know that this is the foundation, the first step, the foundation, the basics of Avodah is for a person to break in the sense of taking ownership of, taking control of, by changing his regilas. He doesn't he's not at the mercy of his habits, right? He's the one that tells, that he's the one that decides. And this importance of Avodah as the first step towards of changing your nature and your habits as the first step down the path to Avodah is we see this demonstrated by Avraham Avinu alav hashalom, says the Rebbe, that what's the first thing the Eibishter tells him to do? You should go out, you should travel, you should leave, right? But the words that are used there, and Chassidus points out all the time, which can be whatever translates here as artzius, sometimes it's ritzainus. From your birthplace, your habits, right? This is your birthright. This is your default factory settings. We start off with certain natural instincts, certain natural habits. We also learn through observation of the world around us and through study and instruction. So we develop certain habits and we acquire certain perspectives, and the way which is right, and the first step towards Avodas Hashem and which the Rebbe previously said is the first step, or a critical foundation for our limud Torah, is we have to challenge and ultimately abandon or move past and take control of our naturally developed instincts and our naturally developed perspectives, or the things that we've learned from the world around us, from people around us. That there are a number of things as that we would classify as pleasant or beautiful, and contrasting that ugly and disgraceful and shameful. That if you look at the human perspective, the worldly perspective, the natural perspective, sometimes they'll take something that's disgraceful and they'll make that into something beautiful. And they call that politeness and civilization. Right? I'll give you an example of flattery. So flattery, telling a lie, is something shameful. And civilization, civilized people, they put on a schnips, they put on a tie, and they lie to each other. And they say that that's mannered and that's polite and that's civilized. So you see, but if you stop and you distill it down to its core, what are you doing? You're lying. That's a davar meguna, and they turn it into a davar no, and they call it nimros. And as a result of this, they end up approving or endorsing a number of things that are not done sincerely, right? Any insincerity. We know by Chassidim and Rishonim, the worst insult or the worst criticism was a chitzen, or someone who was superficial, someone who was insincere, and yet that's almost the heart of manners, is insincerity, the essence of manners and civilization. What is it? And they take things that are superficial and insincere, and they turn that into a maila. And conversely, or right? Sorry, I skipped over there. They promote and endorse things that are insincere and superficial, and their whole claim is it's all about presentation. It's all about presentation. How often do we hear that? Presentation is the most important thing. And sometimes the other way around, that they take something that's truly good and beautiful, and in their eyes it becomes disgraceful. And the reason why people end up adopting these attitudes is primarily, says the Rebbe, because they are mindlessly following the pattern of habit and nature, which generally comes from materialism or worldly nature of the world. So the first step, the first thing you can do to free yourself from that is you have to tear yourself away from that pattern of behavior, and that pattern of justification, because sometimes that's all you need to do is to justify certain things, to say that's what everybody does, that's how I've always done it. You have to tear yourself away from that and attach yourself to something with an emes for the sake of emes, because it's right, because it's holy, because it's pure. And even if it's not your nature, even if it's not civilized, quote unquote. This was all an arichos to point out that at the root of Torah is, and this is why it's so important to learn B'tzibur, because you might think if Torah is all about intellectual pursuit and academic excellence and insight, and if it's a brain thing, I think better when I'm on my own. Right? I don't need to sit and hear the other guy's klutz kashas, and I don't need to hear. That's all true, and that's all a real hesitation, a justifiable hesitation. If Torah was a milmata l'maylos, Torah was something that you're supposed to climb to and build slowly by yourself, but that's not what it is. Torah is a gift. And even those things, in Chassidus, it talks about a lot of times, the idea of Isser de Le'ela, that's not connected to Isser de L'Sata, but it comes in certain times, or it comes after a certain avodas. So how does the two go together? How could you have something that's beyond your efforts and not result of your efforts, but there's a component of things that you have to do in order to get them? So Chassidus explains that sometimes you can't draw this thing down yourself, but you can make yourself a worthy candidate. You can make yourself a landing pad where this can come, where this can dwell. And because that's what the true nature of Torah is, it's not a seichel and a chachma. It's a matana likis. So in order to do that, in order to figure out what's the best way to learn Torah, we can't decide on our own what's the best way to learn Torah with our own seichel. We have to find out from the Neisna Torah under what circumstances and what conditions is he going to grant us this gift. And we've said so far, and we'll continue to explore, that Rabin is a big component of that. So first, he's saying on a personal level, you have to be a kalif to it by being batal. You have to make yourself worthy of Torah by getting out of the blota, getting out of the mud of the natural tendencies and the natural attitudes and perspectives and way of thinking. And then the second point is another thing is Rabim, as we'll see. So we're holding on Ois Gimel. Again, I'm just trying to go through it before we finish, because we're not just learning because we're interested in the topic. It's I of the Rebbe to learn the Maimer. So even though maybe we could have stopped and delved into some of these things at greater length, I'm going to try. At least we'll get it in general terms. And we kind of Rebbe said, and tell the Chacham Yachkam Oid, and then maybe this will whet your appetite to learn it more in depth and to learn the Rebbe's Maimer on the topic as well, on this Maimer. Ois Gimel. So to explain this more at length, this idea of Avodah and the overlap and the interplay between Avodah and Limud, we have to register, we have to focus on the fact that this Hashem desired there to be a Dir B'Tachtonim. Like it says, Sheikov Amudei Sheish Miusadim Al Adnei Paz. Sheikov, his thighs are pillars of marble, established, standing on and firm on Adnei Paz, sockets of fine gold. Omer Hazal, Chazal say in Medrash Rabbah, Sheikov, right, is obviously a metaphor, a mashal. The shake of this imagery, this word of shake of the thighs, refers to the olam. Hashem desired shake Miloshin Chukka. Hashem desired to create the world. Amudei Sheish, the pillars of marble. Why are they described as pillars of marble? Because Sheish is the six elements of the Midas, right? Excluding the Chachma bin Das and leaving out Malachos, which is the implementation phase. You get it right in between. You have Chagas Nihi. The 6 days corresponding to Chesed Gvur Tiferes. That's a Chaydi say. What's Miyusadam Adnei Paz? What is the foundation? What keeps the world firm? This creation that Hashem did in 6 days are the sockets of paz of gold. Elu Parashi Yisrael Shal Torah. These are the parashas of Torah. And we see Bereshis Bar Elikim. Right? It says about Bereshis Bar Elikim. The Bereshis, we know this from Rashi. The Bereshis who Beis Bereshis, quoted from the Medrash. That Bereshis can be read as Beis Reishis for two reasons, or two entities that are all both referred to as Reishis. That was the impetus, that was the motivation and the justification for the whole act of creation. The Yisrael Nikra Reishis, Vater Nikra Reishis, Yidin and Torah are both called Reishis. And the Rebbe connects this Torah, Yisrael, he connects to Tefillah, and we were talking about Tefillah and Torah, and the Rebbe connects Yisrael to Tefillah, and Torah is obviously Torah. And for these two entities, the Yidin and the Torah, Hashem created the world. Why did you need? He says Yisrael Kadmel Torah and Torah Kadmel Eilam. So why did you need for these two things, these two already pre-existing entities? Why did you need a world? Because what the Eibishter really wanted out of this whole thing is that the Yidden should learn the Torah as it exists in a physical world. So he created a physical world, and he embedded the Yidden in the world, and he gave the Torah through physical concepts and physical concepts, and the Yidden should learn it in that context, and that would be the Tachas HaKavanah. This is the completes the intent in creating the world. Which causes the Torah right? The Torah is the light. Just like light illuminates and puts everything in its right place, so too the Torah, everything in the world should fall into place according to Torah. And that is the Miusadim La'adnei Paz, that the Torah is the foundation, the firmness of the world. In Amr Azal, and we see this in the famous Medrash. Tonight, that if the Yidden will accept and fulfill the Torah is good, and if not, Chas v'Shalom, then the world will revert to Tohu v'Avoyu. The Kiyum HaTorah, what is Kiyum HaTorah? U'shasiyas HaMitzvahs, Kiyum HaMiyu al pi HaTorah davka. It's not Kiyum HaMitzvahs, it's Kiyum HaMitzvahs, it's Asiyas HaMitzvahs al pi HaTorah. And the Rebbe goes into mitzvahs and mitzvah. I'm going to go through it quickly because we're going to try to focus primarily on the points that are related to the Torah Berabim. But I'm going to read through it anyway. The Inyan Tzivui Moed al Shaychos the mitzvah, the mitzvah v'amitzvah. The commandment, the idea of a commandment, demonstrates that there's a link and a relationship between the commander and the commandment, or mitzvah, the one who is commanded. The mitzvah, right? The commandment connects the one who's issuing the command, the one who is fulfilling the command. And we see this in our own context, in our own world, that a commandment is always issued between two parties that have some sort of relationship. A father commands his son. You can't go outside and command the stranger on the street. You can request, but you can't command because there's no obligation, there's no responsibility, there's no pre-existing relationship. Or a master commands his servant. Again, a master can't go out and as a master command a stranger. So the act of commandment shows on the relationship between the commander and the commandee, and the fulfillment of the commandment in both in general terms and also in a beautiful way, in a way that's conscientious, shows that the commandee, the person who receives the command, feels a connection and a responsibility and obligation to the one who issued the command. We can see this in the fulfillment, the obedience of a servant, or maybe in modern terms, an employee. Is very different than to the obedience of between a son and a father. Certainly, on an emotional sense, right? There's the obedience of a son is full of warmth and love. And that's not the case with a servant or an employee. And also in the conscientiousness of doing the mitzvah, it's not just a matter of fulfilling the obligation, but doing it with extra effort. And there's a spectrum here. Each of these has something to contribute, something unique. A son has a essential bond to the father that the servant doesn't have. On the other hand, the servant has a kabbalah soul that a son doesn't have. The common denominator, the equivalence between them, that the common thread here is that through the commandment, there's a connection and a link between the commander and the commandee. And in doing the commandment, he creates a nachas ruach, in our case, to our Creator, like Hashem says, we see it by the Karbanis and elsewhere, that there is a nachas ruach, appreciation, a pleasure that is generated when Hashem's will is fulfilled. We should just go. You want to? You rushing? Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so I'll just the Rebbe elaborates till the end of the ois about. I would encourage anybody who learned all the way till here, you're a page and a half from the end. Take some time, the Rebbe Seirah, and finish the mimer. I'll just finish it outside, so we don't infringe on Ma'ariv here. The end of the ois, the Rebbe continues to elaborate on the importance and centrality of creation of doing mitzvahs and the transformational effect that the Torah mitzvahs has on the person, and this awareness of this will give a person the extra koyach that he needs, and the inspiration and excitement that he needs to do this properly. And then the Rebbe points out that our Rebbe explains this very, very beautifully also in the Maimar, but he talks about the difference between tefillah and bracha, and that Torah has some aspects of bracha in that it's a commandment, it's an assertion, whereas tefillah is a request, and we'll jump now to the end. Let's say for the words v'lochein. The line starts shalachal, the line ends v'lochein. V'lochein ha-Torah nitna b'midbar. Because it's accessible to all, the Torah was given specifically in a desert. Kedua the Keser Torah Hefker Lokil, that unlike the crowns of Kahuna and Malchus, where you have to be, you have to have a pedigree, you have to have the right DNA, the right genes. The Keser Torah, anybody can come and take. You have to be a Yid, but every Yid can take it. Every single Yid is able to tap into and draw down not only the Torah to himself, but the higher Gilunim through Torah. Everybody can tap into Torah, and that goes back to our Mishnah where we said that even Echad, Shayeshev, Isaac Torah, the Eibushter is there, Koshkin 3 and 5, but in Daima, the Koyach Harabim, and the Rebbe talks about this idea that the Rebbe explains it that through learning Torah we draw down from that's higher than our own Le'ela, so what's left? That when we learn Berabim, it's like it's Melchachila Melmayla Lamata without any link and any restriction, limitation by our avodah. And this is what the Mishnah tells us, that it gives us unique status that 10 people are sitting and learning Torah. The Shekhinah is dwelling in their midst. And the Rebbe ends off not to, I'm guessing not to discourage those that are not learning B'minyan, that don't think that even the Echad is special, but the main thing is to learn Torah gamim zulase, to learn also with a fellow. And when you're learning Berabim, we said before, especially if it's interactive, even just learning together, you have the benefit of everybody sharing with the fellow, his friends. Which is an act of tzedakah, a spiritual act of tzedakah, which benefits the teacher as well, because even though maybe it's slowing him down, it refines his seichel 1,000 times more. And I want to just again remind, because we have to realize that Torah is a matana. It's not a puzzle to solve with our own intellect. It's a gift from Hashem. And so even though you think, okay, it's slowing me down, it's not slowing you down. It's making you worthy of the matana of the Torah for the Eibushter. And it doesn't just help us in learning. It awakens hashpa'is from the source of our brachas. Like we said in the beginning, that through the 13 middays, just learning Torah, the 13 different paths and methods, we are tapping into an awakening and drawing down from the which are the infinite and unbounded compassion and mercy and generosity of the Eibushter. And the result is not just intellectual, it's not just academic. The result is not just spiritual, even not just elevating you in spiritual terms, but it also brings us gashmis, in good that is visible and apparent and obvious, that it's open and revealed in all the areas of our lives, in children, both spiritual children, physical children and spiritual children, in gesund, both in physical life and spiritual life, and both in spiritual sustenance and physical sustenance, great riches. Yashikayach for joining us, and see you by all the learning Berabim that will happen with Igud Torah, with everybody together in their own Daldamas. Yashikayach.